All right, 9:04. Let's call this puppy to order. Hi, Tammy.
How are you?
Well, I printed everything out, and somewhere in here is the agenda.
Deb's not here yet, huh?
Here we go. Okay, we do have a quorum. We need to have a motion for Tammy to serve as a member, a voting member at this meeting until Deb arrives.
I make a motion.
I second.
Tammy's.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hey, official. We have 3 sets of meetings to approve, all of which have been circulated to you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the
Meeting.
October regular meeting?
So moved.
I second.
I have one slight change I would like to propose. It relates to a point about our jurisdiction with respect to colors, which comes up later, but at the top of page 3, this refers to when Richard Jones came back to the meeting. It says Richard Jones later returned to the meeting with additional information indicated that colored glass predated clear glass. And then I'd like to eliminate part of the next phrase. So it would just read, following discussion, members of the commission still in attendance unanimously agreed.
Fine.
Okay.
So,
Tammy, you're now on it.
Okay. Okay. Well, don't mind me. I'll be over here playing backgammon. Talk amongst yourselves.
Commissioner Jones?
No.
That we approve with one revision?
Oh, yeah. Why don't we phrase the motion that way?
I move we approve the October minutes with one revision.
I second.
And you've got that, or I can tell you. Okay. And then we have the October 17th special meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve those?
I will make the motion to approve
I second.
the 17th meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries, and then approval of the October 27th special meeting minutes.
I move we approve the special meeting minutes for October 27th.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. Okay. Communications. Martha is not here. She did file a report, and I didn't see any reference to communications on that report. Okay. Let's move to the public open forum.
Fine.
Now, they can hear me, right?
They can hear you.
Somebody's on?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll turn to the public forum. Does anyone have any comments? Okay, let us move on. The Secretary's report, you all have a copy of. Martha, again, is not here, but she did file a report with updates on the C of A. And I need a copy of that, which I don't have. Wait a second. I must not have printed them out.
I did not.
They're here.
And then
I have it electronically.
As do I, somewhere, but.
I guess that she hasn't done a lot of work in the
Do you want to read it electronically?
Yeah, I just wanted to double check if they had one question.
Is it only the red markup? Is the changing language?
No,
Okay.
this is it.
Oh,
Martha's report.
the full report.
Okay, so she, just to review, she gives an update on all the active C of As. The one question I had concerns 2 Sill Lane. She says no response yet to letter. Do we know the status of that?
No. I mean, I can check at the post office again. It's just,
I mean, why
it
don't-
seems to be in a dead letter file or something.
well,
Because we're not even getting the certified letter back from the postal service, which we're supposed to have happened in 15 days after the 16th of August. So, but I can check on it.
yeah, if you could check, maybe we'll send another. Historic plaques, the report updates Martha's research on 62 Lime Street, research still in progress. And Carolyn, that's an issue you have discussed with her about
Yes.
whether Bugby was the...
Correct. Whether there was a pre-existing structure, whether the date that Bugby renovated the structure is the date the plaque should read.
And
Still
then,
trying to figure that out.
okay, and the action item that Martha has is just continue research.
Yes.
Okay. Co-chairs report. Deanie.
My only report is more a suggestion than a report, but in the October 3rd minutes was a lengthy description of our conversation with the CEO, Eric Knapp, where some very good suggestions were made on improving the process, and I would just like to suggest that we return to those minutes and those suggestions when we have the time. He made some sort of substantive suggestions as to how the process with people applying for building permits be notified that they're in the historic district, et cetera. Anyway, there was a list of them, so we should just
We had
go
gone,
back and
we
be
had gone
sure.
over forms with him, and we
Right.
need to check that those building and zoning forms have been updated.
Right, so just when we don't have 19 things on the agenda, go back.
Let me, since we're a bit early, let me raise an issue that's up under new business. It's really ongoing business. Do we want to finish our site this year?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Can we pick a date?
Yes.
Oh, another special meeting.
Sure. When sometime before you leave, John, and
Yes.
not too late, preferably before Thanksgiving maybe because of the temperature. We get colder.
Oh. Okay.
So this week is not good. Ooh.
Monday, the 21st? That's Thanksgiving week, but it's early in the week?
Yeah, I could do that.
I can only do Wednesday of that week, the 23rd.
Day before Thanksgiving.
Right. But doesn't mean that,
A festive HTC sidewalk down the street.
I'm sorry,
Are you here?
I'm not, I mean, I don't know, we haven't decided for sure. If we're to go to Boston, I would go probably Wednesday, so if it's Wednesday morning, I can probably do it.
I'm open that day.
I can't do it that
Okay.
day.
that's a busy day.
I think that's
That week.
a really big.
Everybody's trying to get ready for Thanksgiving. That's.
So the
fortunate.
prior week, Russ, you can't do it any of those days the prior week?
Maybe Friday,
The 18th?
18th, I would do that.
What time would that be?
Well, we could do it whenever we can do it, when it's most convenient
Yeah,
for us.
I need to,
I could do it.
I could do it up until about, I'd have to be done by 4.
Well, we have to be done by 4 anyway, 'cause
Yeah.
it's dark.
Oh, that's true.
Do you want to say tentatively 2 o'clock on Friday, the 18th?
That's nice.
Does that work for you, Russ?
Yes, yeah.
Tammy,
2 o'clock,
as,
okay.
if it's possible,
I can't answer because my daughter, they're in state field hockey right now. And so,
depends how far they go.
yeah, so every day is like,
Is it a good team this year?
yes.
Yes.
Oh, that's-
Correct answer.
Great team this year. Are we going to meet at the Lime Academy? We got that far,
Well,
or should we meet here and just walk up there?
Well, let's meet up,
Let's get
oh
up
yeah,
there.
let's just meet at the
we could meet at,
Academy.
yeah, or the Art Association, yeah, that would be fine. Lime Academy Art Parking Lot, good. I think it's just good to have a date on the calendar, and we'll try to, make sure that still works for everyone.
Okay,
Okay.
so,
I'm sorry, what time will you guys?
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock on, what's the date?
Friday, 18.
December 18th.
November.
Oh, sorry, November.
Go ahead.
Tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Still early. Let's talk about, so we're still under co-chair's report. The signage policy, which is also ongoing business. One of Eric Knapp's suggestions was that it really as a follow-up to our community letter, that a letter be sent to all the businesses and nonprofits in the district concerning signs, and there are issues with respect to some, but not others. It does strike me as sensible to send first a general letter, something short. Are you comfortable if Deanie and I draft and send a letter?
Yes, certainly.
So, John, is this different than the resident letter that we have
Yeah.
worked on? Okay.
The resident letter was just general information about the district, a reminder that we're not the only stewards, property owners are, and an enclosure of the guidelines.
So has that been mailed?
Oh, yeah, that was mailed
Okay,
in,
so that was that day
that was
mailed.
mailed right early October.
Okay. And no feedback from it?
No. I mean, I guess Russ had heard some
No, it's
generally
just favorable.
favorable
Okay.
favorable comments, but no specific
Specific feedback, yeah.
So the
feedback.
next letter is...
So the next letter focuses just on signs and
Okay.
reiterates a few of the guidelines.
Okay.
And then depending on feedback to that, we may need some specific follow-up with individual property
I think
owners.
Eric's suggestions about Wayfarer sign, as he called it, across from the Lime Art Association is a really excellent idea. And he sort of gave us a blueprint for how we might go about doing that. And I think when we review his comments, that we can perhaps, I thought they were excellent, we can discuss them, but perhaps we can just follow that. But I think an initial letter saying that the signage in the district is being reevaluated, reassessed, it's a very good idea. And then this, putting the actual plan, we're going to install a Wayfarer sign, and this is what your options are, and so on. That could be a follow-up.
Do we think the letter should come before we review this, Eric's comments, or?
No, I think we should remind ourselves of his.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, right. Yeah, that the letter comes from a group review of that, and right.
Well, should we just delay the letter?
Do you want to put that on the agenda?
On the December agenda.
Or we could put it on the
If you'd like to proceed with a draft, but I think before it would go out, I think it's important that I haven't had a chance to look at Eric's comments in detail.
Why don't we add it to the sidewalk agenda? And then we'll do a circulated draft and decide it that way.
That would be great.
Okay. We're still early. Wow, this is like never happened.
Keep on.
Keep going.
Keep on.
Well, I'm not sure that Elsbeth is here.
Do you want to talk about move up the Catherine Ludington sign discussion?
Yes.
Since we have time?
Sure.
It won't take long, I don't think.
Yeah, let's look at agenda item 12. Which
May
is,
I report on my exchange with the library?
yes.
Yeah.
Please.
So a recommendation came from someone in the community that rather than adding another sign to Lower Lime Street and placing the Catherine Ludington sign in front of the Catherine Ludington house, that we consider seeing if it might be an option to move that sign to the library, where Catherine Ludington was an officer for many years and which she supported financially, and of course her family built and dedicated the library. So I had a conversation with the librarian who was initially very positive, but also raised some questions about prior approval of placing the sign in front of the Ludington house. So I had a look at the options and would like us all to consider whether or not that sign, just as we placed the Lafayette sign a little bit further east on the green rather than right directly in the sight line of Lime Street, if we were to place the Catherine Ludington sign in front of the house, we could perhaps consider, if the Coxes approve, placing it at the south end of the Cox's white picket fence so that it would face essentially east-northeast rather than, and therefore it wouldn't be something that you would just see and it would be one more sign sort of obstructing or interfering or intruding on the vision of Lime Street.
This end. If we're looking at the Ludington house.
As you look at the Ludington house at the far left, where the white, perhaps at the end of the white picket fence, it would still be visible from the street. You'd see that there's a sign there, but it wouldn't be right by the church driveway, sort of where there's a lot of clutter already. So I'm just proposing that we consider whether we want that to be an option or whether we want to pursue placing it either inside or on the grounds of the library after follow-up discussion with Katie Hepman and others. So that's my suggestion.
Text of the sign refer specifically
to
at this house?
It does. But Martha Hanson, you'll remember at one of our previous meetings, recommended an additional sign if it were to be at the library, which we could provide, which would say something about the house is, where the house is, or even a map or something. And so we would disaggregate the sign from the house if we wanted to place it elsewhere with additional signage.
Home of suffrage.
Yes.
Martha sent the wording.
Yes,
she did.
Right here.
You're looking at it? Can you say it?
It says, Votes for Women, home of suffragist leader Catherine Ludington, 1869 to 1953, President Con Woman Suffrage Association and founder League of Women Voters.
So it doesn't specifically reference the...
It does reference
It says
the house,
home
home of.
Oh, yeah.
So we would add an additional sign, which we could work out the wording for. Martha had some hypothetical wording, if we would like to place the sign elsewhere. Remember, the sign is pink and lavender, and it's rather, it makes a statement. So whether we want that color combo.
Again, sign
Is it the size of the?
Same exact.
Same exact, yeah.
Size.
And it would be posted the same way on a post
Yes.
kind of thing, a metal,
Exactly.
Could it ever go along the fence?
that's what I was thinking.
That's what I mean. It would be parallel to the fence.
No, but I mean,
On the-
like,
on the
almost on the fence.
Oh, mounted
I
on
mean,
the
I
fence?
mean, maybe not specific, it would probably tear down the fence.
Yeah.
But I mean, mounted at that level, at fence
That would be good,
level?
rather than protruding above the fence. Yeah, there's nothing about the level, that would be fine, definitely.
The owners just have to agree to it, is that correct?
Yeah, the Coxes have already agreed, but the Coxes have placed the property for sale. So there, so there is that
Right.
consideration. I just think we do have a couple of options, and whether we need to walk over there or a couple of us could walk over there and make a
Well, we
recommendation.
did that for the other sign, so I think it's important that we see it together.
Yeah,
Because when is the sign ready?
it's ready.
Oh,
It's
Down
here.
in the basement,
okay.
Is this the right one? Where's Elspeth?
LAA.
I think that's the right procedure. We look at
Okay.
that site first and decide
Oh,
if we think
geez. Was
it
I-
is viable and appropriate there, and if it is, fine, and if it's not, then we go back to the...
I agree with that.
Oh, right now.
Right now.
Did you get that, Deanie, for your minutes? I'll add it in.
I was just distracted with that.
Yeah,
The
repeat
decision is
that.
to go two steps. First, some of us, we don't have to all do it, but some of us go to the site and decide whether this sign is appropriate there in front of the Ludington House. And if not, then we pursue the option of placing it at the library.
Well, we have public meeting requirements, so I'd suggest a couple people only.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Deanie and I can set that up. Maybe Debbie would come, or Russ, if you're free.
I'm not free at the
Not free.
moment.
I know.
I know that.
That's fine.
Sorry.
There's a price to success, Russ, you're paying it.
Okay, well, that sounds like
That's my report on the sign.
a reasonable plan. There are a couple other details that we'll get to later, but it is time, since Elspeth is here, for discussion of the LAA proposal.
Good morning.
Come,
Yeah, please,
come
come
on,
up,
please.
yes.
This morning,
How are you feeling first? Do you-
much better. Still in a case. I'm recovering from bronchitis, so still an occasional cough, but it's just been. But thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning, Elspeth Dowd here from the Limart Association, and I have with me Caroline Walters from our board, and we have our architect with us, Greg Nucci from Point One Architects, to help answer any questions.
Come up if you want.
On this.
So, start, or do you want to go?
Sure. Is that?
Thank you.
So, part of the plan for the Limart Association is they're going to be replacing their roof as well as the skylights.
This is all the information.
You can see in this kind of photograph, just to give you an So, the roofing material will be an asphalt, fiberglass reinforced shingle, like most residential shingle you see.
What's the roofing now?
It is that.
It is that.
Okay. And the skylights are going to be a slope glazing system, but they're going to look the same proportions and same dimensions as what you're seeing on the currently there. They do need to meet wind loading requirements and things like that. So
With what requirements?
wind loading, yeah.
Do you want to hold that?
I don't know. But that's the plan right now. The finish will be similar to what the finishes of those skylights now. It's like a galvanized.
The color of the shingles is the same?
It will be the same as the current roof that's there now. We'll match it.
Questions, comments?
We looked at this, right?
We did.
Yeah, so.
I think, yeah.
We had an extensive preliminary
Right.
discussion, but no
concerns.
changes from...
No changes from the prior discussion?
No change.
Okay.
I move that we approve the new skylights as presented.
I second.
What's your timeline for...
The Blind Mart Associates, they've just hired a construction manager to get the ball rolling, so...
We just
Soon.
hired Enterprise as our construction manager, and they will solicit bids from subcontractors, and so we're hoping by next summer we'll be able to get this project off the ground and completed,
Okay.
pending supply chain issues.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think it's an exciting and overdue project. Get it put in before the current ones give away.
Keeps up with the siding. The siding looks great. So.
It does.
It's nice to
Really
see.
nice. Yeah, beautiful.
We'll talk with our neighbors before the construction project gets going to make sure we can minimize disruption of any events either across the street or next door to us.
Good. That's wonderful.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No abstentions, no one opposed? That
Great.
was easy.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Early, we
Yeah,
get
thank
all
you.
that away.
That's great presentation.
Thank you.
Wonderful. All the materials were excellent, so
Yeah.
we could all be familiar with it before you even.
Yeah.
So it was very nice to
Very
have.
Very helpful.
Thank
Very
you.
helpful.
Thank you. Next time.
And thanks for all your work. All the board, I'm sure, has been plotting what to do.
And everybody works towards the goal.
Yes,
Yeah.
Nice.
great.
Good.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for putting us on the agenda today. We
Yeah.
appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you, too.
Feel better.
That's great.
Okay, next.
Someone's phone?
That's great. Yeah.
Oh, phone here?
Oh, no.
That's great. Great.
Morning.
Yeah, he's recording.
And next up is Deb Moore.
Morning, Deborah.
Good morning, Carolyn. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Deborah Moore. I'm the chairman of the board of the Florence Crusoe Museum and the acting interim director until we rehire an executive director. I think I'm here to mea culpa if we've been violating signage.
I mean, this actually, I'm not sure if you were here, we were talking about a letter to go out to various businesses and nonprofits because there were several sign concerns, and you're, as a responsible citizen of the historic district, allowing us to chat about things early on. Probably we'll have other chats. So, we haven't been able to find any records since the signs out front were redone that those have come to the commission. We have seen, and you can update us, but several other signs. The Wee Ferry Village signs are, of course, temporary signs. But it's kind of odd because the district, I understand it, is shaped so that if here's the road, there's a property like that, which is the
Huntley Brown?
Huntley Brown house that is not in the district. But certainly signage on the right side of the road would be included. And then we had also noticed that sandwich board sign
Right.
at the walkway that connects the museum with the Lime Art Association. So, is that an accurate summary? Do you have a list of what various signs are?
There's no formal list. So the main sign at the entrance, the big sign at the museum, there's no record of that ever coming before you?
I mean, originally, but not since it was redone.
Okay.
We've been able to find.
That doesn't surprise me.
When would that have been done? Any idea?
It's been there a long time, maybe.
90s?
Yeah. Right.
Or,
No, I think the time went up after I was back, which was maybe when I was on the board, which was 2010, so I think in that interval.
Yeah, I was going to...
Check the records back to, what does Martha have up on the website? I think there are summaries of C of A's back to 2002 or something like that, going back about 20 years.
I think the concern was that when the signage was done, there were a number of with the two initial signs at the entrance of the driveway, and then there were a number of wayfarer signs, along the walkway that leads from Lime Street to the main entrance of the new building and then to the parking lot. But since then, perhaps initially beginning with COVID, a lot of sandwich board signs appeared, and there are now, maybe 3 sandwich boards that all say admission with an arrow within a few feet of each other, and those sandwich board signs are not taken down at the end of the business day. They remain up, and so all of those things were questions that we wanted to ask. And if the wayfarer signs, to me, seem still adequate. We're not in COVID now, and I think they were very well done. I think Mary Ann Bessier's company did them, didn't they? I think they're very effective. They look good, and they're very clear, and they guide you from the driveway to the entrance to the Kriebel Gallery around to the parking lot. And I believe there's another wayfarer sign at the end of the road leading into the parking lot. But I think our question to you is, do you feel that the existing wayfarer signs are not adequate for the museum now after COVID?
When you say wayfarer signs, the signs that are directional that say where admissions is, I think yes, they came up in COVID because we moved admissions to the barn. And then what happened, COVID sort of ended, and some people really liked the fact that we directed people to the barn because it said we are a campus, and that if you enter centrally, you're there and you either go to the house or you go to the galleries. Now, we did a little walkabout with the staff and actually had a conversation about whether admissions should stay in the barn. This is sort of a digression, but it leads to your issue of the wayfarer signs. And the consensus of the staff is that admissions should go back to the galleries, to the Kriebel, except during Wee Ferry Village. On the Saturdays of Wee Ferry Village, when we had 1,000 people coming every day, you really needed to move people there. So if admissions goes back to Kriebel, all those signs go away. The staff everybody was in complete agreement that it's not a good look for the museum. I mean, regardless of the historic district, it's not a good look for the museum.
That's right.
And you wouldn't necessarily need those signs if the sidewalks actually took you to admissions. I mean, the reality is, in terms of flow of customers, if your walkway takes you to the front door. Our walkways take everybody to Kriebel, and then we're putting up signs going, go this way.
That's the district.
No.
so those are questions I think are excellent for the museum. Obviously, you're working through those. Our concern is it's actually
That's right.
sandwich boards are actually not.
It's according to that.
anywhere in Old Lyme, let alone the historic district. So, there's just been proliferation over time. So what we're trying to do now, in talking to all of the various nonprofits and businesses, is just to be mindful of that.
We need to check that.
So that we don't look like, our street doesn't look like.
That's good. I love it that, I can go back to the museum and say, sandwich boards go. They're against the historic district.
Here's
They really are.
Let's be.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Let's be clear about our jurisdiction. This is the 300-foot line.
Okay.
Shows Huntley Brown within the 300-foot line, but it was, at the time the district was set up, Huntley Brown was a separate property that did not border on Lime Street, so it's excluded. So it encompasses the first barn, but not the second barn.
Right.
So technically, how can I phrase this?
Technically, I could put
you could go back 301 feet and put up all the standard boards you want, and we would think poorly of you, but we can't say anything. Then zoning comes after you. No.
Right, because they're not allowed anywhere in town.
Well,
they're not in the regulations, but they obviously are all over the place.
There are some very narrow exceptions under the zoning regs, but yeah, you run into a zoning problem too with sandwich boards. So, frankly, that's the main one main concern.
Okay.
The other main concern, that meaning sandwich boards.
Right.
The other main concern, I think, is really, really big Wayfarer Village signs.
Okay.
Now, that's my personal
I've heard that, John,
view.
also from community members, but that is temporary, so
It is.
I'm personally okay with that. I think that the sandwich board look is not good for the district, not good for the museum, and also not in compliance. And so therefore, it's not only the museum that we're talking to, but in the historic district. So we would be grateful if the museum would address this on its own, based on our suggestion, recommendation, and request.
Minimize it, really. I mean, everyone understands the necessity from time to time to have something up there. COVID was one of those times, and there may be others, but they never seem to get taken down. They get put up not just at FGM, but and then
like I said, we did a walkabout, one of the staff meetings, and said, and this is, like I said, a digression, if you're a visitor and you're coming here for the first time, what do you see?
Yeah.
What do you see?
I saw 7 sandwich board signs there a few weeks ago.
Just a few feet of each other.
Well, that's because you put one up and nobody follows it, so you think 3 makes it better. It's a thing.
Mainly, it doesn't look great for the museum.
No, it doesn't. The proliferation of extruded plastics at the museum diminishes the historic look.
Look and feel, yes.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not that you all picked up on. My big pet peeve right now are all the trash cans.
Yes, definitely.
They're going. That's a conversation.
Excellent.
Oh, yeah.
Well, in terms of process, and I want to come back to Wayfarer Village signs in a minute under the heading of process, but you need to come into the commission with what we call a C of A application, certificate of appropriateness application, for basically all the signs that are in the historic district. That would include the sign out front, any wayfaring signs. Some of it is, we have to do the same process for everyone. The museum's a responsible citizen, but part of it also is a record-keeping portion. So people who are curious can come check out exactly what was approved and when it was approved, and if there are changes, so that we know what was approved. So that would be good. Now, my question is, how do we deal with temporary Ferry Village sign? My only concern, I mean, I tend to agree with Carolyn. It's personal view, not commission view. It's temporary, it's fun, it's not a huge deal. I do get a bit concerned about not having any size limit on it, and technically it does need to be approved. And I don't know whether we could approve a sign up to such and such a size and say this will be up between certain dates each year. I don't see why we couldn't do it.
What's the lead time? For me, the museum, getting the application to you. Like, We Ferry Village starts essentially October 1st. Do we start the process in June?
No, September meeting.
It could be in September.
Okay.
It's the first Monday in September.
And Deb, the very good news is, as a nonprofit, you don't have to pay the $25 fee.
I just hit up some board member for.
Just want to point that out.
The only cost is time, the most precious commodity.
Okay.
It's different every year, right? In other words,
Yeah, it's a different theme.
different theme, different design.
But,
Yeah, you know.
we should talk about materials and comfortable with.
Yeah.
I think all the signs that they did outside for We Ferry Village, like the Twinkle Point sign, I'm pretty sure that was wood. And then the lollipops, which were, that numbered the stations, those were wood. But, we're already talking about next year. I mean, they reveal what the theme for We Ferry Village is. I think it's Thanksgiving. So the process of saying what David and the art department is thinking about, we can do that really early.
Would it make,
it's a nonprofit. Things move slowly in nonprofits.
Would it make sense to consider, assuming you weren't changing the sign dramatically, just you would change it thematically, but not from a size and shape? You could have a like for like, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's not a big deal to come and say, this is, somebody from the art department will paint it out on some board, bring it in and say, right, these are the markers for each of the ferry houses, and this is what they want to do. When we got the letter and I said, I think we're in trouble about Twinkle Point, David was prepared to move it. We'll move it back. And
well, I mean, while we're here, what do you all think about placement? You know where it had been, essentially right in front lawn in front of the house.
Well, it has to be somewhere visible for all the people coming, because they come from all over the whole state.
Yeah. I mean, I think what I'm struggling with is you have holiday signs as well, right? We just did an exhibit at the Halloween for the Historical Society. Does that come before the committee? In other words, at what point is this different from like that? And are we going to be reviewing all the...
Well, the dilemma is the practical one. I mean, we technically have jurisdiction over all signs, including temporary.
Temporary signs, right.
But do we have a form for a temporary sign, like a 30-day or 60-day?
No, it just goes on the normal C of A application.
It's being treated as any other sign, a permanent sign,
So is there not some kind of special form that could be a 30-day sign, a 60-day sign, something that we know that the museum and other nonprofits do annually? That we know, it's coming up, it's We Ferry Village, so we know that there's going to be 4 signs extra out there. to look at it, that approach of, it's coming, to gain.
Well, I don't know why we would need a different
Okay.
form for that. I mean, we do know it's coming.
Just have something on record to say.
The reality is for really short-term events, somebody puts up a temporary sign saying, concert this weekend, and it's up for 3 days.
Blood drive.
And blood drive, whatever. And it's up for 3 days, and it's between meetings, and
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Because it comes down, so nobody.
But can you say it's the nonprofits and maybe the restaurants that typically do this, and it's a seasonal
thing, yeah. It's longer than 3 days.
Yeah, so it's going to be, we know that the Old Lyme Inn is going to have a banner for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, for New Year's, like that type of thing, that it's coming, so that we can at least say, they're trying to increase foot traffic in their business and advertise, and we don't want to stop that, but at least if we can accept it and say we know that they're going to do it.
well, and also if we can set some parameters. I mean, again, my concern, and it's not a concern under current management, but what if somebody says one year, we want a really huge Wee Fairy Village sign this year.
But you can't see the museum building, let's say, the Florence Griswold House. Right? Yeah.
I think it would be appropriate to set some parameters for materials and maximum size.
And location, too. I mean, I think your point, John, about one of the things that we've talked about is not having mechanical units in front of the primary structures. And so the placement might be something that is part of that, to maintain the integrity of the buildings along Lime Street. Maybe that's where you're going with that.
A setback would be nice.
Yeah, setback, yeah.
But it's not right.
Well, I mean,
Anyway,
in terms of these applications, you have to think about what you want. And so, with respect to Wee Fairy Village, come in with a proposal of maximum size and location and material, and we'll discuss it.
Yeah, I don't see it a burden for the museum, even to come in June before, to say, this is what we're thinking, because, you don't want to wait till September and do it, because that assumes that you're going to get a yes. So if you do it in June and say, this is what we're thinking, this is where we're thinking of putting it, you can say, no, that doesn't work.
Does that give you time to change and fabricate? In other words, if there's a change to the design.
Yeah, that's why I say you do it in June.
And you would have enough
I think
time.
that's
Well, it's
yeah.
off your slate of things. Just FYI, there's no August meeting of this commission, so you'd want to do it before.
June or
July.
Yeah, do it
I
in
mean,
July.
you can do it whenever you're ready, whenever you've decided what you want.
And what's the duration typically? Of the
30
week?
days.
It's 30 days, yeah.
You put it up before.
Right.
I think it only went up maybe 2 weeks before, that.
So 6 weeks. It's up to 6 weeks.
Maybe, yeah. It may not even have gone up 2 weeks before.
5 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
But going back to the sign at the entrance, we think there's never been an approval for it.
I think there has been.
I've gone back, again, 20 years, that I don't think there's been an approval for it in its current version.
As in the original approval was just for the sign, and the fact that now there are banners on the back, that the banners may not?
It's possible, because we've had to approve those for other institutions. We've had to approve them for the Art Academy and for the Lime Art Association.
I mean, anytime you have a sign, I mean, right now there's the tall sign and then there's the short sign. I thought the short sign was relatively new.
Well, the parallel to it is a banner that says what's going on, like whatever the exhibition is.
But then there's the sign that
The low
says...
sign.
Oh, the low, yeah, there's a low sign.
Internet access points, right?
I mean,
That has to be. Within the last 20 years.
Right.
Anytime you change a sign,
Okay, so then we should come back and get those approved, or at least come back.
so we just need, size, material, specifications, we know the location of those.
Not difficult, the form is.
And one other thing I also
It's on the
remember-
internet, right?
I remember discussion of the Matilda Brown sign that's near the Huntley Brown buildings, and there was a lot of discussion at the time that went up, should it or shouldn't it, what should it consist of, and so on. Does that need to be approved also? I don't think it was
The Huntley Brown,
Not at the house,
I know,
it's
but-
between the house and the Crable Gallery.
That may be outside.
I think it's outside the district,
Okay.
because
That's
in
what-
1971, the chunk of land on which the Huntley Brown house was located had no road frontage, and so was not in the district.
But signs that adjoin the Lime Art Association's property and the Florence Crusoe Museum's parking lot would be in the district.
Yes. Now, it may be that technically it's an issue for LAA, that sandwich board. But it's got the museum's name on it, so.
Is that your sign? That's your sign? The one, at the little bridge? Or you're
Yeah.
talking about the one at the
Yeah.
bridge? It's a,
Is it a museum sign at the
Not
bridge
sure.
between the large, yeah,
Probably is, it's on our side of the bridge.
yeah, so that's something else.
Yeah.
The other thing I did know.
no, it's right there as you get on it coming out of the LA parking lot.
Deborah can check.
Yeah, I'll find out.
She can find out.
One other thing I noted the other day, and it may have been temporary, I don't know. There were like cones and, the gate, the fence, and you've got the gate that goes.
Oh, yes.
There's.
The fire road.
The fire road, is that, I don't know if they were there this morning, but I noticed that there were some, like, traffic cones and then a sign.
That could have been for Wee Ferry Village.
It could be, yeah.
It picked up, but I'll go find out.
My only
about
thought there is, if there needs to be something there indicating for folks not to occupy that lane, and it's a longer duration, right, then we should think about what that is too.
it. Yeah, the fire lane.
The fire lane, yeah.
Good.
So, in terms of, let's pretend the sandwich board issue is gone.
Yeah, that'll be gone by noontime. Out of here.
The signs of concern are the two signs out front.
Because they're not approved.
Where is the wayfaring sign?
Do we need to approve those, the one in front of the barn, and there's another one?
And again, I took away my district, but basically back through
Second barn,
through the first barn.
Yeah.
the first barn,
Signage.
Right.
So any existing signage there,
300.
and then Wee Ferry Village is just something to be dealt with
Right.
next summer.
Right.
Or September.
You
Right.
could even do one form.
And the fire lane.
Rather than six.
And the fire lane. The fire lane could have been marked off for Wee Ferry Village. The maintenance man Wee Ferry Village was too much for the maintenance man. Wasn't expecting so many people. So we used the Coast Guard Academy to help tidy up after Wee Ferry Village.
Okay, good.
Well, go ahead, question.
I'm surprised you didn't bring up our very tired fence. So I'll bring up our very tired
I did.
I noticed it.
I did,
I didn't bring it up.
note your email, and you said, last I heard, it would be dealt with next spring.
Well, we're going to apply for a grant. Good cash flow management in the museum is to write a grant, see if somebody will pay for it, unless it's dire, and then you do it right away. The fence out front is very dilapidated. It needs to be replaced. So we're in the process of writing grants, and that's something that somebody will pick up on, because the fence was there when Florence Griswold lived in the house. So it's not a matter of just taking down the fence. It needs to be replaced. And I had asked John if AZEK was an acceptable material, because while it's more expensive, the paint stays on it longer. And he said it was. So we'll go ahead and do an application.
Yes.
Because it'll probably be something in the grant will come in the springtime.
What we always ask with fencing, people replacing fencing, is that if they do use a material like AZAC, that they try to make sure that the finish is not a shiny,
Correct.
white, glowing.
Correct.
It should look like a
Yeah.
painted.
Correct.
It should be
Correct.
like in its appearance.
Correct, and that's the value of ASIC, is that you can't tell until you notice you don't have to paint it again right away.
It does weather, too.
Yeah.
And
It actually does, which gives it more of a...
Patina, yeah.
And I will say that fence is a unique and specific design.
Right.
I think is really cool. So it'd be cool that not just to replace it with any wooden or ASIC type.
No, they're
thing,
not.
But try to replicate that design. 'cause
We
it's
reached out to Cronenberger and Sons Restoration,
Yeah.
which does historic buildings, for a bid, because they would be able to duplicate it in one of their shops,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. I was
Yeah.
looking at the construction of it.
Yeah,
We've had
yeah.
discussions with people who want to do some solid board, I mean, there are solid board fences, but they're pretty much restricted to property line divisions rather than facing the front.
Well,
district.
this will match.
It's a very unique pattern.
It
to
is,
it,
it's
so-
right.
Nice matches.
Yeah.
No, we'll match it exactly.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
The challenge is, and I don't know if the issue I'm about to describe has come about because the existing fence is old and dilapidated, or whether it's the terrain, but it kind of slants. I mean, ideally, you have something that, as you're driving down the road, looks like it's all in
one plane.
in one plane.
Address that.
Yeah, they
Well, I
can.
think it's a mess, Like I said, I'm surprised that you didn't go, whoa, do something about that fence.
I just
Well, we
mentioned
see
it
what-
casually so that
Yeah.
you could begin to think about
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah, it's trash.
that's a nice way to do it.
Yeah.
Rather than have it be a complaint or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's important for look at the.
It was interesting when we did our little walk. This staff had a very critical eye about, when you get away from your desk and you go for a walk, you say,
It's lovely,
Next speaker.
but it's great that you're doing that.
Yeah.
And you look at it with the eye of a visitor, rather.
correct.
Right.
I confess, if I get there before the museum opens, I sneak in the exit.
Right.
And I'm probably not the only person.
Right.
But why? It takes 1 more minute to drive around.
Because time is money. Besides, then I get to look at the deferred, I get to look at the deferred maintenance on the Saunders house.
The fence also it's unique in that it has stone posts.
Yes.
Which is great. It's a wooden fence, but it's a stone post, which is really cool too, so.
And while we're on the issue of the front, the lilacs have no historic value,
Correct.
so they'll be transplanted
Good.
in the spring.
And the lilies replaced? The daylilies?
Were the
or-
daylilies
No,
there?
this isn't a matter of our
No.
discussion.
Yeah, but I just know
I don't want to take up
that
this time for
but
that.
you would have to approve the removal of the lilac bushes, I think.
No.
Did anybody ever approve the lilac?
No, we didn't approve it. We don't have to.
We don't
approve
have
it.
landscape.
Just do
Oh,
a taste.
okay. Now they're going.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Gee, thanks.
You're welcome.
How are you?
I'm
I should
good.
have said that at the beginning.
I'm good. If, a second, we have our first set of interviews today.
Oh, nice.
Good.
So-
Can't wait.
So all 5 candidates will be interviewed by Friday.
Is an ad out for another maintenance person?
Building and grounds, yeah.
Randy's, I think, going to take it.
Great.
Um,
Good call.
Well,
For now. Good call.
no, I offered it to him because he's been at the museum for 18 years. And so he's interested. So we did put an ad, but, because I wasn't sure he'd take it, because it means closing his business. So financially, it may not be in his best interest, because right now he has 2 gigs. And we would be his main gig, but I think he's going to take it.
That's excellent. Good, Deborah. Cool.
Okay, well, thanks.
Right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
See you soon.
Very soon, I think.
Okay.
Or I'm always in my office, so just...
All right. Terry, you're up.
How's everybody doing on this beautiful spring day?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, we're inside, you know,
How
come
about
on.
a swim?
Getting stuffier out. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Greg.
It's a recording.
Yeah, it's, he's recording with that.
Oh, yeah. Here, I'll put some file on top.
Okay.
No, it's town.
Well, Terry, thank you for coming.
Sure.
Coming in. We've been.
Always a pleasure.
We've been thinking about what position the Historic District Commission may want to take. And
Okay.
as I indicated in the email, yes, rather than, excuse me, rather than jumping into a discussion of picky little details, it would really be helpful to us to get your thoughts about some of the bigger issues that I so what is it that you really want, and what are your main concerns with operating under the existing zoning regulations?
So,
I mean, you meaning LACFA specifically.
yeah, no, I understand. Yeah. So, the intent of all of this when we started was to, as I've said, it was to codify sort of the uses that had happened and were approved, but not necessarily very specific. So the question always was, well, do we have approval for this, or do we have approval for that? And then, I don't know if you've actually ever seen the file, let's say, for the Lyme Arts Academy, but it is literally a foot thick. And so you have to go through that file every time and say, okay, what's really been approved, what hasn't been approved, and it's like, let's just get it sorted one time so everybody knows what the rules are here. And then the question was, okay, so do we start potentially an overlay zone? Let's create an overlay zone that, again, codifies what basically we started with the 4 organizations, what they're doing, what their overview is. So we went to that step, and it seemed to make sense to do that, as opposed to having 4 organizations in a row that are doing different things, that the different rules apply. And so it's like, let's have the rules apply to all these organizations. Everybody seems, yeah, sure.
I'm unclear about why rules are different for different organizations.
Because
A,
they had previous approvals.
And B, that we have this foot-high file, but you could easily go through one time and say, make a list of what had been approved, so you wouldn't have to go back through the file. There would be ways to respond to that, that whatever, secretarial concern, bookkeeping concern. But I'm not clear on if you could just elaborate on that a little bit before you go on. Why do you think there are different rules for different organizations?
Because there's different approvals for different organizations. Everybody didn't go through the same process. So the Flow Grizz went in different times for their approvals. Lima Academy went 4 different times for their approvals. Certainly, Roger Tory is just starting out, so they haven't, their file isn't a foot thick like our file. So it's sort of a real, what do you want to say, patchwork of rules, and that just didn't make sense. So it's like, you know what, let's get this sorted. And so we spoke to Dan Beret, who was the then zoning officer, and he said, that's a great idea, because then I know when somebody calls and says, what's approved, I can tell you, or what's allowed in that zone, I can tell you, as opposed to having to go through each file and explain it. So with that encouragement, we proposed this evolved, of course, but we proposed that language.
What in particular, parts of the language in your proposal seem potentially quite broad.
Mm-hmm.
What does LACFA want to do? Does LACFA now, for example, have all the approvals it needs? Has the shop been approved with selling all these arrangements of goods, or do you see this zoning proposal a way to cure an issue that's right now technically not approved? There was a shop when it was an art college, but it was rather limited in scope and audience.
But there's always been that sort of what I'll call retail element to what they've done. And I think it makes sense to have that as an accessory use, not as a primary use, not as a Barnes & Noble moving in, but as an accessory use. I think that makes sense. And so, again, the idea was, let's get some regulations here so that people know what's allowed and what's not allowed. And because a lot of this stuff was, as you know, grandfathered in. It started before zoning, or it was done before a zoning change. And,
could you give us examples, Terry?
Of things that are grandfathered in?
Grandfathered, yeah.
Sure.
At LACFA.
At LACFA.
Yeah, exactly that. The retail has always been there. The fact that it's been a school in various forms, I guess, is was grandfathered in. I think the size of the property was grandfathered in. So there are uses and activities there that are grandfathered. But I guess my response in general was, I think we're getting way ahead of ourselves. We're not placing this regulation. We're saying that this regulation would then allow it to be placed. And we haven't said where or how or why. We're just saying we want a regulation that allows this. And so that's what is before the Planning and Zoning Commission, is the regulation that allows an organization meeting the other qualifications to come in and say, or organization or organizations to come in and say, we want this applied to our property.
We want this applied
to our property.
I was just going to say, in the past, some of these things have been handled individually. When the Lawrence Griswold wanted to open the Cafe Flow,
sure,
for example. I don't know what approvals were given for the art shop, but it has expanded, and it has signage outside and opening hours and things that did not exist before. It was more sort of a student shop. People could go in and buy some paint if they wanted to, but it wasn't broadly advertised and everything the way it is now. So it's become more intensified as a retail shop. But what is to prevent LACFA from coming just to zoning and just codifying that use, just individually?
So, I'm sorry. Is the question, what would prevent them, if this gets approved, from applying?
If there isn't an overlay zone, what is to prevent LACFA from doing just what Flow News did for the Cafe Flow? And, as you know, the zoning was just changed on the Beam Thistle. So those have all gone through a process of change in zoning. So why wouldn't LACFA just go through the same process? Why an overlay zone?
As opposed to like a case-by-case basis,
Yeah.
whatever changes.
I mean, I think Terry's comment was it helps zoning
Yeah,
know
but-
what's anticipated, but
Exactly, and then everybody knows what's allowed.
But I think, I'd like to hear Terry answer that, because I think that's an important part, in that we're not creating a specific zone, we're creating a regulation that can apply to the entirety of Old Lyme.
Correct.
Right? And so whatever goes in here, for example, recreation, that could be anything from hiking to snowmobile riding, could have nonprofit snowmobile riding could happen anywhere in Old Lyme, anywhere along the historic district. So I think Deanie's question is very important in that is there an option that addresses the needs of the Lyme Academy that doesn't potentially open up impact on the historic district, which is our purview, on a broader basis? And so the question then is why do we need an overarching change to the zoning regulation if in fact you can achieve what you need to achieve with the current process? I think that's the question.
Yeah. So I guess there's two parts to that. One is, as you said, this isn't only applicable to the historic district.
Right.
Okay. So what happens outside of the historic district is not under the purview of this commission. So that's not, should not be a concern. The second thing is that this gives, and I think it's a real benefit to the town of Old Lyme, it gives the opportunity for the appropriate kind of nonprofits to be able to come here and know what they can do. Whereas to come and say, oh well, we'll go on a case-by-case basis and either get a variance, which you have to prove a hardship for, or do a site plan approval, is very much a here and there situation. I mean, you may get it, you may not get it. This would say, this is allowed in this zone. You still have to come back and ask the Planning and Zoning Commission for permission to do it with the site plan. But at least, again, you know what you can do, and you don't have the piecemeal. One organization says, I want to do this. One organization says, no, I want to do that. And it's all piecemeal, as opposed to, okay, here's the regulation. Everybody knows what they can do. But again, this doesn't apply to any property. This is just a overlay zone.
We're talking about an informational or educational need that persons not presently, nonprofits, let's say, who don't presently exist in Old Lyme would need to be informed about what they could do were they to move to Old Lyme.
Right.
Wouldn't there be other options of ways that information could be conveyed?
Sure, but they're much more difficult. Why not have it in the regulations so they can look it up, they get online and say, what's allowed in that zone?
Terry, I have two questions. We have a proposal, the town, for a Halls Road district. Why was this one written as a option that could apply throughout the town and our concern throughout the entire historic district? Why wasn't this written as a, Halls Road, Lime Street intersection arts district?
All the specific boundaries. Halls Road has specific boundaries.
But we haven't placed this yet.
But why couldn't you?
Why couldn't you?
Because this was an overlay zone. If we place the zone, then it's going to I think, actually interfere with what your intent is, which is to not disturb the underlying residential zone.
But Halls Road is an overlay zone, isn't it?
It is. It is at the moment, but it's soon to be placed, and affects the underlying zoning. So the question
this
is,
would effectively affect the underlying zone too, right? I mean, now you can have a bistro, now you can have a dorm or whatever the living quarters is.
right.
I mean, those are uses that would affect the underlying residential character of the district. So again, the question is, why not, at least in the terms of it, define it in a way so that it couldn't spread elsewhere in the historic district. I mean, I can think of right now another existing situation in the historic district where this could
Easily happen.
This could easily
But,
happen.
and is that a bad thing?
Well, for that's what Beth does.
It's what?
Depends, that totally
Beth knows
depends,
what
Terry.
Beth does that.
It could be a bad
It could be a bad thing, yeah.
We don't know because we don't know what it would be, but yes, it could be a bad thing.
I think for individuals that live specifically in the district,
Yeah.
they lot property and so on because it's a residential district and it's protected,
Right.
or that's their vision. And so their vision perhaps isn't a string of cafes and bistros up and down
Okay.
wherever there's
So-
nonprofit.
The cafe, quote, bistro has to be an accessory use. The nonprofit has to come in and say, okay, so let's walk down that street. Somebody comes in, buys a piece of property as a nonprofit and says, we're going to have educational, whatever, nonprofit here. They then have to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission and say, we want that zone, that overlay zone placed here. The Planning and Zoning Commission has a public hearing and says, what do you think? And the neighbors come out and say, we hate that idea, we don't want it. The Planning and Zoning Commission then says no. Or if they say yes, then they get to be able to do some of the things they have to do. But I would think the Planning and Zoning Commission is pretty sensitive to what uses would be appropriate in, certainly on Lime Street. I would think so. I mean, that's their job. It took I've been into this years now, and so I can tell you it's not easy. And so I think you have to have a little more faith in your Planning and Zoning Commission, number one. And number two, your purview is really variances and site plans. It's not really zoning regulations.
Oh, yes, it is.
Well, I don't think so.
It is in the sense that we have specific statutory authority.
Your statutory authority says applications and it says...
we can initiate planning and zoning.
Of course you can. Regulations, there's no question about that. I didn't suggest that.
That's what we're talking about.
No, we're not. You're not initiating it. We are. But
if we have a...
Please. I didn't interrupt you. Are we going to argue or are we going to talk?
No. I'm sorry.
The statute says zoning variances and special exceptions. That's where your jurisdiction lies. I'm happy to discuss this with you. I'm happy for your input, but quite frankly, you don't have jurisdiction over an overlay district regulation. When it gets placed, I think then you should certainly have input in that. There's no question about it. And your handbook says exactly the same thing. It quotes the statute.
Maybe we could shift back.
I'm sorry. Let me just... Sure. It's my second question. At one point you said the overlay zone couldn't... I'm forgetting your exact phrasing, so I'm really just asking for clarification.
Sure.
Could concern an organization or organizations.
Right.
In your view, how many properties are necessary at a minimum to constitute a zone?
I think one property could apply for this. We've said no more than 4.
Yeah, I saw that.
So anywhere between 1 and 4 could apply, and it would be up to the zoning commission to say yay or nay.
So if it's 1, does it not become something, I mean, I'm not a zoning.
Right, I understand.
Does it not become a form of spot zoning?
That would be the question for the planning and zoning commission.
Right.
Do you think this property, if it's a quarter-acre piece of property, would that be considered a spot zone?
Right.
That's a good.
That's a question for them.
Exactly. And I think that is, again, very subjective.
Sure.
What's the property? If it's a 30-acre piece, then one could probably do it.
So Terry, let me understand kind of what the net effect could be. It could be that as a nonprofit, I could come buy a residential house here on Lime Street.
Right.
I could initiate my nonprofit, and under that, I could implement a cafe, a restaurant.
Only if it's accessory to what you're already doing. You couldn't just say, I'm a nonprofit cafe.
No, I'm saying I'm a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know, I do sculpture.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
At the same time, I could contract a company to run a cafe. That company could be a for-profit company.
So let's assume there's no cafe there now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're coming in cold.
Coming in cold,
Okay.
but I'm a nonprofit. I'm sculpting, let's say.
Yeah, I like your sculptures. Go ahead.
Right, and I want
Now
to
you want
open
to
a
open
70-person cafe.
Up to 70.
Up to 70 at any residence the one that I purchased.
Yeah.
And under this regulation, that entity that is now running that cafe could be a for-profit company. It could be Starbucks, as an example. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
I think you are wrong on that, but go ahead.
And why is that wrong?
Because it has to be,
It's supporting my organization in that I want to have people come, partake of my sculpting,
Yeah.
and at the same time buy a cup of coffee.
Okay.
Right?
yeah?
So if that's the scenario that's outlined in this regulation, that's the concern overarching in changing the residential character
Right.
of the district by not defining the specific location of the zone.
And do you
That's
think-
the concern.
I understand that. And do you think when you go to Planning and Zoning Commission and say, I want to have a cafe in my sculpture, and, oh, by the way, it's going to be run by Starbucks, they would say yes?
They might. Well, no.
Seriously?
Well, no.
It's not within your control.
Right, it's not.
I understand.
In other words, now we're exposing the district to that, and in fact, Lime Academy, they're teaching sculpting.
Yeah.
They have a cafe. In other words, it's not that I have particular concern about, as I said the other day, about trying to meet the needs of the Lime Art Association. It's the implication or the net result that we just described that could happen throughout the historic district that ultimately changes the preserved characteristic of the historic district that's been preserved over time. And I'm struggling with that.
Yeah.
Maybe you can help me.
Yeah, first of all, I don't think that's going to happen. Second of all, the odds against the Planning and Zoning Commission approving a Starbucks at any of these entities,
Well,
any sort of...
things can evolve over time, right?
Come on, they're not going to do it.
We don't know that.
We don't-
Yeah, that's,
We don't know
But you
that.
have to have faith in there. It's just like saying...
Trust but verify, that's what we...
But
Yeah,
they
I
already have a cafe.
That's the point.
Nightingales, for example. So I have no idea, but what if they couldn't, make that really work as their little cafe, and they decide to bring in
The regulation
outdoor.
allows for it.
So they bring a boutique Dunkin' Donuts operator or something. Once the use is there, once it's approved.
So what stops the Flo Grizz from doing it?
Well, they have approval for their cafe.
I understand that, but so why don't they bring in a Starbucks or bring in a...
Well, they do have an outside operator.
I understand.
They can.
I understand.
But it's not throughout the district. I think that's the point. It's at the discrete locations and not changing the overarching zoning code that allows that to occur potentially throughout the historic district.
I mean, here's a scenario, Terry, and then I want to go to a different question. Take advantage of your expertise while you're here. I mean, another scenario is a nonprofit sets up its own cafe, and it really fits, and zoning says yes, and it doesn't fly. Now you've got to, because it could encompass outside according to your, and it's all set up, and the nonprofit says,
Can't make it work.
we can't make it work, but Starbucks thinks they can make it work. They've got a national brand. People would come there, and it also would be good for us because we probably get a few more people who are coming just for Starbucks. And they come in and enjoy it.
Yeah.
You're right. I don't know the personalities on zoning. I know they change from time to time. In the abstract, it's hard for me to say zoning if it is faced with, because we do, I think the town and town bodies generally take account of the real world. Here's an important nonprofit that can't make a go with respect to part of its revenue stream, and here's a solution. And we'll just have discrete signs. I mean,
the signs would have to be approved by you.
But let me add to that.
As would the parking, as would all of that stuff, if it's in the historic district, right?
But we still have the Starbucks.
Well, I know
Which we don't want.
And I understand that. The comment also made, John, per the language as it's written, it could be recreational use that is very broad in definition. So let's say it's not just a Starbucks that I want to run a go-kart track, or whatever the recreational use might be. Unless we define that, unless we define recreational use, that nonprofit can now implement that as well. In other words, the regulation allows for a larger bandwidth of things that could come and change the residential character of the historic district.
A kayak rental would be a very good example of that.
But could I follow up with a question for Terry specifically?
Yeah.
Terry, you included, or likely included, that opportunity for recreational use. What did you have in mind?
Right.
And why did you include that term?
So, the recreational use was really for Roger Tory, so that they could do bird watching and that kind of thing.
But they're no longer participants, so would you then...
We don't
no
know
longer
that.
petitioners.
What?
They're no longer petitioners.
Yes, petitioners.
Okay.
So I wondered if you would therefore still need to keep that language in, or Roger Tory could always come separately for a request for recreational use. Do you envision any other recreational uses in the historic district, aside from that would warrant the inclusion of that
language?
That provision, that language?
I'd have to think that through. Off the top of my head, they were the ones who really wanted the recreational use language. But could I see some? I don't know. Could I see the Flo Grizz doing something recreational? Again, some sort of walk, some sort of stargazing. I mean, I don't know what else. But could I see that happen? I guess. Could I see the Arts Academy doing some sort of plein air
painting,
thing? I could, yeah.
What kind of thing? I didn't hear.
In plein air.
Outdoor painting. Could I see somebody, back to the kayaks, one of these organizations doing a river, a little river kayak thing on, once a year or something? Yeah, I think I could. I mean, I think that's the kind of recreational, not a go-kart track.
I know, and agreed, and so that's my point, is that if the language stays in for recreation, I think it would be wise to narrow or define that. Or else you could expose the district to a wider range. That was my only concern about that.
Okay, here's a question for your expertise. I'm looking at our statutory authority, and you're right. We have the authority to comment on all applications for zoning variances and special exceptions.
Correct.
That's not what's going on now with this proposal.
Right.
Is a special permit a special exception?
No, it's different, because they would have to come for a special permit, but that's why I was saying initially that I think you're one step ahead of yourselves. That's when I think it would be perfectly appropriate for input from this commission to the Planning and Zoning Commission as soon as somebody says, I want to place this.
Right.
Then I think your input is very appropriate. And
we also,
I'm sorry, but I think your input, of course you have control over, like we said before, signs, sidewalks, paving, the stuff that you do, I mean, there's no question you don't lose that as a result of any of this.
Okay. We also have specific authority to initiate planning and zoning proposals.
Correct.
You have made a proposal.
Right.
We could make an alternative proposal.
You could. Nothing stops you.
That's what main thing I wanted to.
And that was my point earlier, John, perhaps I wasn't clear on that. You have every right to initiate whatever proposals you would like. There's no question about that.
And I'm going to have to leave early, so I want to ask Terry one more question. Terry, or at least I wasn't clear. Could you clarify for us, because it would really be helpful, what uses of an overlay zone district, what uses of an overlay zone would you imagine LACWA could benefit from? Well, in other words, what are its plans? Why does it want the district? I'm still not clear on that. Why does it want the zone?
That's what I
didn't mean to use the word
because
district.
it's simple. Then everybody knows what to do.
Well, you said that, but how does it benefit LACWA? How does it benefit the learning?
Just exactly that. That they know what they can do, they know what they can't do, and it just makes it simple for everyone, including now Eric, our new zoning enforcement officer, because as I said in the beginning, Dan was like, every time somebody comes in, we have to go and look at how this happened, and he had a big question about the Flo Grizz. He said, I'm not sure about their cafe, how that happened.
I understand that.
And it's like, okay, let's sort this out once and for all, and here we go.
I get that, but what does the Lime Academy want to do? What are its plans?
Its plans are just to continue to do what it does, really.
Do you envision that Lime Academy building a new building for living quarters?
No, I mean...
because what's in your proposal...
Allows it. What allows
it?
Yeah. So... what do they say? Predictions are hard to make, especially about the future. I don't know, but they own the property across the street, of course, and so I think one of the issues that always has been unresolved is visiting professors. Somebody comes in, 9 months, where can they live? And you know what rents and housing is like in Old Lyme. It's very expensive. So these organizations said, it would be great. We have sort of the ability to do that, to house somebody. We're just not allowed to do it. And so it's like, okay, why don't we get realistic and say, okay, you can do housing, but again, you've got to go back. You've got to go back to the Planning and Zoning Commission to get that approved. New buildings, of course, would have to come through this commission, and any renovation, any change to a building would have to come through this commission if this was done here.
Only exterior.
Yeah, okay, only exterior. So if there's exterior changes, then you would have the input on that, the control on that.
I suppose another question in my mind would be that many years ago, the same argument was used to gain approval to build all the housing that was supposed to be for students that currently exists up there.
Yep, yep.
So, and that, for all kinds of reasons that many of us understand, didn't work out.
Right.
So now, more housing is needed, or could they not rent one of those places that already exists, or two of them, to be used for that, used for that purpose?
Mm-hmm.
I know many of them were altered to conform to standards for students,
Right.
so they were divided up a little bit more.
Right.
It seems like it actually makes an excellent place for visiting artists, counselors, professors, anybody in the existing housing.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting for a minute that Lime Arts has a big plan to build housing. They and Roger Torrey would like to be able to have visiting.
Right.
Now say here, Roger Torrey is a perfect example.
Perfect example.
Here's a building which was built for, people to stay in, and they can't do it. So that's why we went through this regulation. We made sure there were no kitchen facilities in each one, so it doesn't get converted into apartments or condos or anything like that.
Right.
And so that seemed to satisfy everybody's
So
requirements.
that's exactly, though, what's happened up there, right?
Yeah.
They were
Except
built as
that-
student housing, and now they're condos.
Right. So that's the issue. Then the rent becomes very expensive, and if you can get them, and here we go. So again, I'm not suggesting that the academy's going to start building tomorrow. That's not their intent. But they'd like to be able, at some point down the road, if they do well, they'd like to be able to have housing, and so would Roger Torrey be able to have visiting professors and
In existing structures, you don't mean build new structures.
right
For Roger
Torrey, especially for Roger Torrey.
You mentioned earlier Barnes & Noble. Would this overlay allow for something like that?
Well, that was the discussion that we had. I don't.
We're using Starbucks.
Yeah. But it's the same concept.
Same concept, yeah.
I just personally, I don't see the Planning and Zoning Commission allowing any,
But does
we'll
this
call it
overlay-
national chain into Lyme.
So does this
Oh.
overlay allow for something like that?
I didn't put specific language in there that it's prohibited because I wasn't exactly sure how to do that. We don't want a Starbucks. I thought that was not appropriate for a zoning regulation, but I think the message is pretty clear that this has to be an accessory use. It can only be 10% of the building if it already isn't grandfathered, and so you'd have to have a pretty big building before Starbucks would come in.
Define accessory use in terms of the operation, right? Not the footprint.
Right.
But at what point how does the regulation define that the cafe is not the 90% of the gross revenue for the entity?
It doesn't, but accessory uses in the regulations and certainly in the law means that it is you have to have a primary use and then an accessory use. Accessory uses typically are much smaller and of course accessory to the primary use.
Right.
So it can't be 90% of the building. Can I put a hard number on exactly what size? Well, we said in here that it can't be more than 10% of the footprint if it doesn't already exist.
For a new building, right?
Yeah, for a new entity.
New
never
entity.
mind new building.
We're getting into questions about specifics of what you are proposing, which is fine. But under that umbrella, another question, you allow as an accessory use any other private or public event. As an accessory use.
Yeah.
So would weddings be permitted? How are those accessory to a primary filling, except as a revenue source?
Right. So the intent there was to allow for like fundraisers. They
Sure.
through its various iterations, Lime Arts always had a big fund once a year, or then when they were actually at college, they had a graduation. So I'm really thinking of those kinds of things, not weddings, not parties where people would come and have the facility to themselves or something. That's not really the intent. The intent was to allow the continuation of a fundraiser event or, once a year kind of event.
So properties that currently host weddings would not be able to, under this proposal?
Well, then the question is, are they grandfathered? If they've done it, and they've done it for a period of time, would they be allowed to continue? That's an Eric question more than for me. I think that would be really for him. And I do agree. I thought his answers were appropriate to the questions you had submitted to him.
What do you see, or what does Lime Academy see as its most likely wish for a restaurant or cafe? What would they like to do?
I think just like to use what they have, and on a nice day, would they put a table or a few tables outside? Maybe. So it'd be, I think, similar to Flo Grizz.
Use what they have, meaning?
Well, they have a cafe there.
You mean the former cafeteria?
Well,
yeah.
I guess you can call it a cafe or cafe. It says cafe.
Well, it was always a cafeteria for the whole rest of the time I've ever been there. It was a cafeteria for this college and the student and before.
Yeah, it's a different.
Yeah.
Was it public
Wouldn't this be a different use?
cafeteria?
It was never public.
So this would be that.
They say that you could go in.
You could have gone in and gotten a cup of soup, but I mean, there was no advertisement, no nothing. It was for the college.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have said, "Oh no, we can't give you soup."
Right.
But
Where's your ID? Yeah.
yeah. But it was a cafeteria.
But what would they envision? What would they like to do?
So I think in a perfect world, that would be something that they would consider would be similar to the Flo Grizz. Something like that. And again, no more than 70 seats. I don't know how many seats they have now, but pretty close to 70.
At the academy.
Yeah. And so, again, sort of a continuation of what they have.
Well, it says, if I recall, that it's up to 70 for new construction.
Right.
But if there's an existing cafe, you're
Right.
limited to what you have.
Right. And any idea how many Flo Grizz seats?
Well, about 50. I mean, the question
50?
the question is,
They don't even have indoor seating.
after a
Yeah.
capital
And there's a seasonal.
campaign,
And
do
it's
they
seasonal
want
and
more?
hourly.
I don't know.
Seasonal and the operating hours are.
Yeah.
So why did you put in bistro? I mean, you look up the dictionary definition of a bistro, it includes dance floors and music and cabarets and nightclubs and...
Restaurant.
We're bringing that disco ball in any time now, I can tell you that.
Why not just a cafe?
We were happy with cafe, and then one of the zoning commission members said bistro, and it's like, okay, you want bistro and cafe, and, because a lot of times they're used interchangeably. But that's how it evolved.
Okay,
That's how it
that's where
evolved.
that came from.
Trust me, we have no plans of dance floors.
And the time of operation is one would assume that it is tied to the operation of the primary use, right? But there's no language that specifies that, or is there other language in the code that would prevent the bistro with disco ball from going to 2 a.m. in the morning? What's the language in the code that prevents that? Because I don't think anybody wants that.
So again, when you buy that nonprofit piece of property that you want to buy, and you say, hey, I want my cafe to operate,
Right.
again, you have to go back for a special permit to the zoning commission,
Right.
who then can put their restrictions on. Okay, it can be open from, I don't know, noon to 7 or whatever the rules are. No live music, no outside lighting, no whatever. So that's when that's when it would be.
Is the Sculpture Studio nonprofit?
He's saying it is. Oh, his.
Oh, mine was hypothetical.
No, I mean the actual sculpture, you know,
Oh,
Bill Burroughs
I wasn't
sculpture.
speaking about that specifically.
It's a good question. I don't know. Do you know?
It is a nonprofit. Thank you. So, okay, so there you go. It's an adjacent nonprofit with a big, huge, beautiful grassy banks down to the Lieutenant River.
Sure.
You know,
Right.
yeah.
Again, they'd have to come in, go to the planning zone, go to you, and say, this is what we want to do. Whatever plans they have, if they qualify.
Can I ask a very simplified, probably, question?
I would love a simple question.
Because I'm new to this group.
I'm sorry for my back.
Oh, that's okay. They're more important. I'm trying to understand all of this. Is it really such a hardship? And trust me, I've got products in the shop down there. I love the shop. And I would love to be able to walk down to a cafe, but I understand the can of worms scenario as well. But is it really such a hardship for Rafa, for example, to just go through the process? I mean, is it really worth all this other stuff?
Yeah, so the reality is, more likely than not, we were to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission and say, we want to, let's take the cafe, we want to have outdoor seating. They would probably say you need a variance for that. Once you have to go to the zoning board of appeals, then you need a hardship. And there's no hardship. As creative as I can be, I can't come up with a hardship for why you would need an outdoor cafe. So it would be a dead end going on some of those things down that road. And so, again, that's why we wanted to at least codify what's there.
What does it mean, a hardship?
So legal hardship says that your property has to be unique, and you have to have a legal hardship. A legal hardship doesn't mean we want it. It doesn't mean we didn't make enough money last quarter, so we need it. It means that you have to show that your property is unique, and what you're requesting for, what the request is special for your property because somehow your property is different than the other properties in the zone. I know that sounds complicated, but that's really the true definition of legal hardship.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Somebody has a piece of property that is pie-shaped, and we, of course, in a line, you have setbacks. You can't, within a certain distance. Well, somebody could say, you know what, because my property is pie-shaped, half of my property is subject to these setbacks. So therefore, I need to build my shed, my garden shed, or I need to put my garage into the setback. And I need a variance to do that. And typically, that's the kind of thing.
And that would be considered a hardship?
It would be a hardship because of the configuration of the property, okay? So that would be a typical hardship. Now, again, it's entirely within the discretion of the ZBA, would they grant that or wouldn't they? But I'm just giving you a quick example. I wasn't expecting the question, but but that's as good as I could do off the top of my head. Face that. Yeah.
Okay.
But that would be a typical hardship. Or somebody, another one is either property slopes dramatically or has a lot of ledge, so they can't put a septic system in there, so they have to...
Yeah, okay. But so if you were to go for the cafe...
Yeah, or even...
They could approve it, though, right?
They could approve it, but I would have to be really totally at their mercy and say I don't have a hardship. And are they really going to approve that? I don't think so. I mean...
You don't think so?
No, I don't.
Well, then, okay, so that's an interesting point because in essence, aren't we approving that by approving the zoning language? If they wouldn't approve the cafe under the normal process.
The ZBA, so hardship, whereas I can go to zoning.
I see. On the specific of hardship, not the concept as a whole, right?
Exactly. So that's the difference.
Right, but that's if you had to go for the hardship, that the initial application or request to do a cafe or bistro could just get approved.
I'm
It's possible.
not really, because planning and zoning would say you need a variance. It's not allowed under these regulations. And Eric would say you need a variance.
It would be interesting to go back and read the flow grids process for cafe flow.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we need to.
Yeah, we do.
I need
Terry,
to- I
Terry,
need to-
this is extremely helpful
Yes.
to us.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Very
we,
Well, yeah. And I'm sorry our little spat there, but,
I did interrupt, I apologize.
no problem.
It, from my perspective, has been a very good discussion.
Okay.
Helpful discussion
Well,
for us.
as I said in the beginning, I'm always happy to come and try to explain,
This is very helpful.
Yeah,
Thank
what's
you very
what's
much
going on.
for your time.
Yeah.
And these are important, it's an important discussion, I think,
I
both
think
for the academy and for the district. So, and sometimes it's difficult, but it's
Right.
important, and we thank you for.
Right. And see, so one of the things that happens, and it happens all the time when you're doing an overlay district, is you're thinking about specific properties. And that's not what, we're not there yet. But it's impossible, because the first question everybody asks is, where are you going to put this? And it's like, yeah, I know, but you don't want to really ask that question because it's not appropriate. But, I mean, I got to tell you, obviously I do a fair amount of zoning, and I was really intrigued and excited about, and perhaps I haven't conveyed that excitement to all of you, but about having a zone, having I hate to say cultural zone because that's a technical, but you know what I mean, arts and cultural zone. I thought that would be really, there would be a great, there already is a great synergy, but if we really sort of mapped it out and said, okay, this is where it's going to be, I think the synergy would be even greater, really, and I think it would be a terrific thing for, these structures already exist, they already do what they do, and I just think it'd be a big draw, and I don't mean thousands of people coming, but a draw in that each entity, I think, could benefit from each other entity.
Is there any way to accelerate defining that boundary? In other words, to put that boundary on the table now, so to speak, versus this?
I think everybody knows what it is, but I can't.
Because we all envision it.
You can't do that? You can't legally, you can't create a boundary for
the overlay, yeah.
What I will do is I'll go back one more time and look at the Halls Road and just see if there's language. Plagiarism is basic to the practice of law.
We won't tell.
Some language there that we can use to try to define this a little better. But again,
I think that would be a huge help, because I love all of those organizations, like I said. It's like that once you do that, once you do the overlay, it's like you can't.
But I really
can't promise it, but
look into it. But I'll try for sure.
Yeah, look into it.
And the other thing is, seriously, I just don't see this spreading.
I know, but that's
It could happen.
That's,
Well, I could win the $1 billion.
Yeah.
But
we see so many other towns where it may not be this exact thing,
Right.
but where
Maybe it's not this.
historic districts have changed in character.
Yeah.
And probably good intentions by everybody, but once it's open, then things can happen. That's what we're just trying to.
No, I believe me, I understand, and
It's our job.
Yeah,
Our
I
job.
got it.
That's what we've been asked to do.
I believe me, I understand that, and I understand the importance of your job, really, and how seriously you all take your job, and that's wonderful. But I just don't see it.
I think
my opinion.
we all have the best interests of the town at heart.
Yeah,
The other point, y'all, I think, probably agree with is that it's the fact that this has been protected since 1971
Right.
that makes it such a desirable place.
Yeah.
Why everybody wants to open something up here. But that's why. It's
Yeah,
because it's been
of course.
protected and
Because
it's
it's a shipping
beautiful
point.
and it's
Yeah.
residential and,
We can all look at Essex and Saybrook and Madison and so on and say, well, that's fine, but that's not all fine.
Right. No, I have to tell you, 40 years into this, I still don't know what the perfect mix is. But I think you're pretty close. It's wonderful to have, we all love to walk down, Lime Street, and it's wonderful to stop for ice cream occasionally. So you don't want it just residential, but on the other hand, you certainly don't want it to
But you want to
turn
protect
commercial.
it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So it's a hard thing to do. So
Great.
that's why they have you. That's why they have you.
We're working at it.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Terry.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
okay, so Carolyn has to
I'm
leave.
leaving in about 2 minutes.
2 minutes, so
Well,
quickly,
the
let's.
next item is the Griswold Point.
Okay, so it's very brief. I did get a letter, I forgot the date, but a while ago, several weeks ago, from Jen Schofield saying that they had incorporated revisions into the Griswold Point National Historic District nomination report, and that she would send me the text. And I wrote back and said, great, I look forward to seeing the text and the revised text, and she has not sent it. So I suggest that I jog her again and say we would like to make a decision at our December meeting. Would she please send me the text? That would be my suggestion.
Is that the SHPO or is that
That's
CT Trust?
It's SHPO.
It's SHPO, okay.
Sounds sensible.
Okay. I'll see you all on Wednesday.
So we're tabling that for
That's
December.
about, you can, unless you want to discuss it, that seems to make sense.
What was our time on Wednesday? Is it 9 here?
9.
Here?
I'm not sure if it's this room or not.
They can inform us of the room. It's 9 on Wednesday. Okay, everyone, this was helpful.
Have a great
Great.
trip.
Thank you.
And thank you for the language.
You're welcome. I look
A
forward
lot
to
of,
your
it's beautiful and
specific suggestions. I was making notes of your language. Great.
thank you, Carol.
Yours is great, but that's just oral, so if you have specific comments, please.
Yeah.
I could do another draft by Wednesday if you'd like. Otherwise, we can discuss that one.
Right, thank
Okay,
you.
bye, everyone.
Fine, thank you.
The next item is the Weicker generator, but I don't see anyone here. Is there anyone on the phone?
No, I don't think, I can speak a little bit to that because I've walked around the property, but, Lowell Weiker's not well and Claudia's taking care of him. So,
Right.
the reason for the application is to sort of speed up the fact that he's going to be coming home and be living there and not wanting to risk,
Power outage.
power outage.
Yeah.
So who's seen it? Have you all seen it?
It's
Okay.
circulated.
I have. I have maps, I have everything right here. Hold on. Okay.
They already have propane tanks. on the property,
Which are being
right?
changed. Yep,
Seen- They already have propane on
they do.
property.
Okay, here is here's the PURFA for and I even have a photograph on my phone. Got it. Okay.
So they want it, this is Lime Street here?
Okay, so here, I'm sorry to do it this way, but, so here's your
Well,
looking,
with a threshold question, can we do this without somebody here to present it and answer questions?
Martha
without-
said we could approve it, a conditional approval.
So it's on my side of her property.
It is on your side, and it's going to go right in down there.
This is where it would be, yes, on this map?
Yes.
Right in
Yes.
here.
And which is this Lime
Yes.
Street?
Here, okay, here we're looking at the front of the house.
Yes, you're correct, it would go there.
Tammy's house is here.
This is my house.
Okay.
And he's
There's all this screening there
Yeah,
already. And then here,
they're showing a physical screen, is that what that is?
And
Right.
so
That's a
I
lattice.
told her, the lattice, that she would, yes. So they're going to take out a couple of those, and then she'll replant them, but put it right there with lattice. It cannot go, I guess I didn't take it cannot go here.
Wait, you
Because
can point to this. That's where they planted.
This is where they planted. It can't go in here because there are windows all over the place. And it can't go under the windows.
There.
This is all,
Windows?
yes, it's all French doors going out to the garden. Yeah.
What's the note at the top, John? Is that the tanks?
That's, 2 LP
Tank.
gas tanks.
Which are already there, is that right?
This is on this one. There too. Oh, no. Here's another one.
So there's a separate application for the tanks. They're not there.
Oh, okay, they're not there. And who's doing it?
Chris Caulfield.
GDL Services.
Okay.
Oh, Chris Caulfield's doing the...
Yeah, but he's
He's
not,
the tanks.
he's the contractor guy.
right, but he's not doing the actual, okay. All right, so where are the tanks gonna go?
The tank,
Other side of the house.
Here.
The map.
It's right at the back corner.
Wait, it's not it. Wrong map.
okay. This,
I think you got blown around.
okay.
I'm happy to.
If you want to, you don't have to.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering.
With lattice enclosure. The very back of the driveway.
That's really close. Oh, okay, that's why they
This
did
is
it,
Lime
'cause their
Street
driveway's
here.
there.
This is
Look.
as far back as I
Right.
can really get it.
So that's
Really
Yeah,
good.
I can tell you
Yeah,
that
yeah.
even though our houses seem really close, the way our house is, that side of the house that looks on their house, you can't, it's very private. Like, we really don't see anything that goes on from inside our house over there.
So do we have enough to approve it, or can we
It
not?
wouldn't affect my view at all.
What, do we know what the proposed lattice looks like?
We don't, I just told her she'd have to do lattice, but she says she has no problem doing lattice. Everything they do is really lovely.
Yeah.
So I
I'm
think,
sure.
but we can ask them for a drawing. But they do need
Yeah, you
to
need-
get this,
They probably need to order the generator.
they do, because he can only stay at the healthcare center for so long. Yeah.
Do we see any specific concerns right now, the location?
I do not, because I was standing there, and it's very much shielded from the front. You won't see it at all, and you won't see it from Tammy's house or there, because there's a lot of planting, and it's all evergreen.
Well, and the windows that are on that side of the house, the way our house, the rooms that are on that side of the house, they're not, I don't see her house.
And it's quite low,
Yeah.
too.
Right.
The generator's very low. It's going to be
by my house.
behind all of the existing shrubbery there.
Yeah.
It
would-
between the dining room and the,
Yeah, it would not affect our view,
yeah.
as I see it.
So do we do a conditional approval with, and ask for design, lattice design?
Do we have specs on the beyond what's handwritten there
The
about
unit.
the height?
The height of the unit, the size of the unit, and the,
Ask to submit that. Is that not on here? Let me see.
I think most of them are about the same size.
On this one.
Yeah, but
Right, does it say?
we would need that, yeah.
it doesn't say the size.
Okay.
That's just the neighbors.
Mm-hmm. know, there wasn't anything other than these two things.
Well, I mean,
Can we approve conditional of just getting the size and then relay the specifications of the lattice and the planting? The lattice and the planting should be kind of like a canned response. I know sometimes it's case by case, but shouldn't we be able to say it's completely covered and, you know, X, Y, and Z, these are the acceptable materials and colors, I know we can't say, but suggest plantings, right?
well, I think that's a great idea, Deb, to develop something standardized.
Right.
We don't have it right now.
Right. Because we all, you know, we kind of refer to, okay, we need the height and that type of thing. So it can be a conditional, we don't need to know make or model or whatever, but just
I would ask for a cut sheet.
right, the height of it.
Gives you the height, the width, and...
Why don't we do this? Can you think you can get this quickly? The special meeting agenda has not gone out. Can't we put this on Wednesday's agenda right at the beginning, and then we'll have a picture of the lattice or a description of the lattice?
I don't know that we'll get a drawing of the lattice by Wednesday.
Well, okay,
But
we
I think
can make
that-
it conditional on the lattice. We'd say conditional on a lattice to be approved.
Oh, okay.
But we should at least know the size.
The size.
Just in
Right,
Yeah.
case.
right.
I mean,
Yeah.
And then we
Size.
state like the coverage of the generator, the coverage of the tanks, although we can't do anything on the tanks, right, because of their location.
Yeah.
We can just make suggestions.
Yep.
Really friendly to your neighbor or something.
well, we could. I mean, it's within 300 feet, and it's not
Okay.
is visible from the road, at least. It's not behind the house, it's on the side of the
Right.
house.
Okay, so we're going to, I'm going to call and see if we can get if they can provide me with the specs.
Right.
And I'll bring them to the meeting on Wednesday.
Right, and for that meeting, Martha said she wanted to file it today, but I'd say just add it to the agenda for the special meeting. And the other open question was, do we need Martha there by phone, the special meeting? We've had our other special meetings without...
She said if we want to, she'll be by phone.
I know, but
If we want her to take the minutes.
Do we want...
I don't know. I'm not great at taking these minutes. That's just a lot of conversation.
Can we record them and then send
Well,
them?
they are recorded,
This was recorded.
Oh, okay.
Still being recorded.
So she
but
can,
the recording's not available for 7 days. So we won't have the recording of this. We have recording, well, yeah.
so can we record it on our phones and send it to her, or no, that's not acceptable, if she wanted to transcribe it from that?
From the Wednesday meeting. Sure. What would be wrong with that?
Because I kind of do that with RTC, like I'll record it and then I'll kind of listen and look at my notes or something and just...
Okay, this is not part of this number 10, about 33. So that's for item number 10, 33 Lime Street. I'm going to try and get the specs on the two proposals by Wednesday.
And can you contact Martha to add it into
Yeah.
the agenda?
I can try. She's flat out doing voter registration and all that. I mean, she's really, really busy.
Oh, right, it's voting.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
She's and they're understaffed in the voting
Yeah.
thing. So, okay. She may have already filed it, but we can add it.
Okay.
Okay. So, interim thing is, do we want Martha there?
Yeah.
I mean, sure. Do we want what?
I mean, I think the other special meetings, and Martha has been there in person, have worked well as in-person meetings.
So you're querying whether it would work as well if she was on the phone?
I'm querying whether it would work. Once it's on the phone, anybody can phone in or listen in.
Right. So why don't we just have the meeting ourselves?
I mean, anybody can come. It's
Yeah.
a public meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
Will that meeting be upstairs on the,
We have a location, yeah.
it's at 9 o'clock on Wednesday, right?
Yes.
Has she sent the,
No, I was just going to look on the town website,
Right.
the calendar. I don't know.
I'll let you know. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So the next item is, we've actually done 2 of the items, so we're actually pretty much right on schedule and nearing the end. There was a question about the our guidelines, which I would like to get posted, and Eric Knapp had some suggestions that we couldn't make into time before the mailing, and I have another suggestion. My suggestion is on the first page, one of the general points says the HDC does not have jurisdiction over color choices, sign content, or building interiors. I would like to make the color thing more specific. The statute says we do not have jurisdiction over paint colors.
Mm-hmm.
And this would cause some confusion with respect to the discussion about the glass
Well, also,
at
like
the Joneses.
like shingles on a roof.
It's not painted, is it?
Right. So in other words, if today we had a roof, same material, same color, I think that the color was important there.
Mhm.
It's not a paint. It seems like to me that if another instance were to come up,
We would have jurisdiction in color.
which I think is important.
So, I've been noticing a lot of these, not in Lyme, but other parts of New England, standing seam roofs have become quite, popular.
Right.
And some of them are very colorful. And they're kind of great on these old farmhouses in Vermont, like the red standing
The popular, the color red, yeah.
Yeah, they're red. And it really does look kind of wonderful in a funny sort of way. So what if we were presented with that? Those are not painted. I mean, they're manufactured, that metal, right?
That's on the barn on Parsons Farm, that green barn, that we've discussed, that property on the corner of Parsons,
Right.
and their
That's a
barn has
standing
a
seam?
standing seam. I believe
Dark
it's
green.
gray.
Mhm.
I think it's
Gray.
gray.
Mhm.
I can't recall, so we didn't discuss that.
That's a concern that's something that could come
Mm-hmm.
before us,
But that's
in a way like your child's did, right?
historic.
Your
I mean,
Tesla
I guess
house.
where I would draw the line is, a stain is not a paint, but it seems so close that that's hard
applied.
to distinguish. But any kind of manufactured color, glass, this roof you were talking about, I would say, yeah, we have a say.
How about solar panels? Because of this push for, and my husband's in construction, and they have a lot of proposals for buildings that they're building that it has to be ESG, is that it? And that is a big push now, that there's no way that they can get out of it. These buildings have to be.
Statute,
There's a precedent for
there's a
that.
statute on that.
So is that
The
Well, not only
statute,
statute, but we've been approving them, and we made a decision quite a few years ago, early on when I was in Alden, to approve solar panels on houses.
in the
But-
district?
In the district, but to encourage people to place them, if at all possible,
Okay.
out of view. The Murgies, for example, have been whole side of the house facing me is
okay.
solar panels. There are lots at the church.
Got
And
it, okay.
I'm trying to think of where else.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a special provision on solar panels,
Okay.
which says we can't rule against them unless we find it would substantially impair the character and appearance of the district. So
Okay. It's all over.
It's trying to signal that we need to be liberal.
Of course.
And these
in-
dark ones
in
are,
allowing these.
yeah, the black ones are
Right.
less noticeable than those bright.
Right,
gray
if the
ones.
roof is dark
Yes.
too. Right, okay.
So,
I would invite, when we do our walking about 500 feet from the center of Lime Street, and you can see the solar shingles that we put on our barn.
yeah, I'd love
Okay.
to.
Oh, that's right, you have them on your, but yours are shingles.
They're shingles, yeah.
Okay.
So I think everybody would enjoy seeing that.
The only drawback is, at least my preliminary investigation, they're considerably more expensive than panels.
Right.
Right, because you're actually putting the roof on.
Right.
It's the roof and the solar
Yeah.
combined, yeah.
Okay, so that was one change. The other change was, Eric suggests, for building and building additions, adding, if the HDC is unable to properly ascertain what is being proposed, it may deny an otherwise conforming application. This is for a building or building additions. In other words, it's a way of saying you need to be really specific in your proposal.
Okay, I'm going to let you write these.
Well, it's on what was Martha circulated. The only thing on this is put in paint and take out choices on the first page, and then update it to November from September. And this, I don't know, are these yet on the website?
I don't know.
I mean,
I know the updated COFA application is because I printed one out,
Right.
but I don't know about this.
I was just noticing one thing here, where it says we have jurisdiction over decorative lighting, HVAC units, and propane tanks. HVAC is not necessarily a generator. It should be MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing.
Right.
HVAC specifically air conditioning unit. So
All mechanical equipment, including,
usually the term would be MEP, which is mechanical, electrical, plumbing units,
that has to be broken down and stuff.
which electrical being a generator.
Right.
On our guidelines, we have the heading HVAC units and other mechanical structures.
Or we could say
that should be-
And generators.
Or you could say MEP.
People would understand what that means, obviously. I mean,
Yeah.
But I would break down generators, the placement and location of the tanks too.
I mean, you could break it out, say HVAC and electrical equipment such as generators.
Right.
Right. But HVAC that's strictly
Heating,
Why
cooling.
don't we, what we're changing is say HVAC units, comma, generators, comma, and other mechanical structures.
Right, mechanicals and propane for those. Because if people get propane just for like cooking or like pool heating, we still have.
what is that split system?
Let me see what it says in the statute.
Split system would be in the HVAC.
Okay, that's that.
And you could put, like, if you want to break it down. Because, that's the only thing that I can think of that would be outside, boilers in your house.
I do think we have never officially adopted this titled summary information. Put it on the website. I think we should.
And if we're going to
adopt
make
it.
changes, we can.
So in the Connecticut zoning.
Well, we can say as amended by.
Russ, what email was that? I wanted to just look at that again. I can't find it.
Well, what I was going to say is the Connecticut.
Complete, yeah.
The Connecticut code says mechanical appurtenances?
Appurtenances.
Appurtenances. That's the Connecticut language.
Oh,
The-
mechanical appurtenances.
Yeah, that's what it
Nice
says.
old-fashioned sort of description.
Yeah, that's not
Then change the title to say.
Mechanical
and
appurtenances?
Other mechanical structures and appurtenances.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the
and then
language of the
IE.
Connecticut statute.
Okay.
Russ, can you tell me what email that was on
Which one?
this? Because I'm trying to
It's
find it.
on the one to Martha's.
Martha's.
From this meeting,
Yes, with all the materials for this meeting.
from Saturday?
From last night,
Oh, from last night?
right?
Okay, from
Yesterday afternoon or
yesterday.
something?
Yesterday afternoon.
Yeah,
Got
yeah.
it, hold on.
Yeah. No,
Okay,
I do
so
love the
that's-
word, okay.
So,
Okay, so are we,
if there is a motion to approve summary and post it as amended and posted online,
I'll make a motion to approve.
motion by Russ.
I'll second.
What is the exact motion? To approve?
Oh, here it is, I'm sorry.
to approve whatever the title is.
What's the title?
It is Historic District Summary Information.
And posted on, as amended by whatever, and we detailed today, and posted online.
As amended?
Are we ready for comments?
Yeah.
The thing that just popped in my head is,
Wait a second, is there a second?
Is there a second?
And then we can discuss.
I think Deb said,
I'll second.
is if there's something that's outside of this, that, in other words, we didn't pick up, is there language in this that says that this is, it says summary, right?
Yes.
But is there specific language, like at the very end, that clarifies that it's not all encompassing in some way?
Right, because
Well-
remember the HVAC on the second floor deck, like somebody like that would say, it's not in here, and I'm going, like, it's not in here.
I mean, we've tried, in other words, I know we've tried to incorporate everything, right? But,
There are some outside things that could come up.
Well, that's a good idea I mean, we sort of say there's other information, more information in the handbook, and that's a wise comment. We probably
should have asked
should
you.
specify that we're governed by the state statutes.
statutes, right.
Why don't we
Governed
say
by-
that?
Yeah.
For summary information as
And things
Stated
outside
by
of
the
this can be
Connecticut
handled.
Yeah,
General
just
like
here,
cases or
at the
something?
end of the last in general thing, says,
to approve, the motion as it reads right now is to approve the historic district summary information as amended and
Right.
post online.
right. I mean, that's okay, but we need another statement.
Right, so what,
I may have language here, let's see.
Governing requirements for the historic district are available in Chapter 97A
CT statutes,
of
what is it? Yeah.
the Connecticut General Statutes.
What is the number?
Chapter 97, small a.
Okay.
I
And we're
think
all
that's all
approved
we
on
have
that.
to say.
Okay.
I
We
mean,
all
isn't
approve?
that enough to sort of a...
Because that's the fallback,
it's
to
a
go back
note-
to the
a note
statute.
that-
Jeannie, do
Go back to the statute, yeah.
Yeah.
That's it, right.
the screening, do we usually say evergreen or the lattice fencing or some sort of fencing? Because remember, we didn't just say it had to be lattice. We said we would be amendable to some other kind of
Right.
Open.
Screening.
vertical. So screening, and then is it and/or evergreen? Or do we say you've got to screen it and then you've got to plant it?
Where are you?
Just on the back here with the screening.
I think we like to have both because we have situations here where the plants just die. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think or encompasses it all.
Okay, all right. I'm just saying how, I didn't know how very particular you wanted to be, that it was and.
We can change the second or to and or.
Okay.
Okay, here,
Why don't we do
give
that?
that to John and let you change that.
Okay, this stuff you ignore. I was trying to make it clearer, but ignore handwriting. So this becomes and or this change. I mean, this can be updated every meeting if we want, if we find things.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
a good one.
And then,
Yeah.
did you get the
So
language?
we have a vote on that. I don't know that I have the language, it's just been changed so many, I don't know.
On the statute?
I have Connecticut statutes, Connecticut general statutes, I know it is that, 97A.
But what about, you have the rest of the sentence?
Okay, let's see, I have to approve the historic district summary information as amended. Okay, maybe we're going to put that at the end.
So you have governing,
to approve the historic district summary information as amended, then what?
governing requirements for the historic district are
Okay, just a whole, I need a whole new page.
are found, I'm writing it down here.
Okay, great. That would be great.
Are
'Cause
found in
I have
chapter,
too many changes.
or how about complete governing requirements?
Well,
I don't know.
there's state in Old Line code, right? So there's the.
Yeah, but I don't want to.
State statute
Oh,
and
yes,
Old Line
in
code.
chapter 97A. Sorry, folks, they should never draft in big group. But these are good points. In chapter 97A of the Connecticut
General statute,
Mhm.
right?
And then
general
the
statutes and
Old Line Town Code.
something, you can look up the number, or I'll look it up, of the Old Lyme,
Code.
is it called code or ordinances?
Yeah. Code. Town, yeah, like town ordinances, I think it's how they,
Old Lyme Town ordinances?
I think that.
Is that the
I
word?
think that's correct. It's chapter 62 of the, no?
Oh, yeah, that's the one.
Right.
I was thinking of there are regulations that are outdated, we need to address some other time. Nobody looks at them.
Right.
There are only a couple.
So we don't have the chapter?
So chapter what, 62?
62.
Okay,
Okay, so I
Great.
think this is it.
Okay.
You can double
I'm
check
going to
against
just-
yours.
yep. Well, you'll see it when I send you the minutes.
On the certificate of appropriateness form, Eric Knapp has suggested adding for type of construction, commercial structure, which is fine with me.
Add right here.
This was attached to Martha's.
Thanks. I just printed this out.
Well, my question about that, John, is does that, by saying commercial structure, does that exclude non-commercial structure? Or why wouldn't you just say structure?
Well, he's got dwellings, he's got outbuildings, he's got commercial structures, he's got sign, he's got others. Or we had all of those except commercial structure.
I see. It has outbuildings?
I mean,
Outbuildings,
that's
yeah.
what he's
Then
added.
yeah, okay, let's add that. Yeah, if he's
Okay.
recommend, yeah, I think so.
And the other thing, and this was a comment he made orally when he was here, is that this last boldface statement might be even more specific. And I've lost track of what he has in mind. Right now it says, No substitutions or changes are allowed once the work has been approved. If substitutions or changes are desired, a new updated application is required.
He wants that stronger?
I don't know how you
That sounds
make...
pretty strong to me.
Yeah, but maybe we could make it more specific. If substitutions or changes are desired,
Are made.
are desired,
Right.
the property owner must submit a new updated C of A application before commencing work on those
Right.
changes.
Right.
Okay, do you want to make those?
How about if we approve it and my brain's fried?
Yeah, mine too,
And-
okay.
But it's that, just the thrust, but just make it that we specify that it's C of A, submit to
We're jumping around
HGC
here, okay.
before work on changes
Commences.
may commence. So those are my rough notes.
Yeah.
So I would say,
Okay, so are
if we need a motion to approve those changes to the C of A.
I looked at this and I thought it was good. I would just say that, how do we make sure that we're not skipped? In the past, didn't we think that people were going right to building and are how flagged upstairs now?
When we talked to Eric, we suggested 3 different forms where we thought it just should be made explicit. And so if somebody files something, zoning or building, whoever, what was the one you had brought in?
The mechanical.
The mechanical, that there's a line on it that says we have to,
Thanks, Tammy.
Thanks, Tammy.
we have to, you have to check a box saying,
Are you in the historic district or not?
are you, if you are, you have to submit a approved C of A,
Okay.
or a statement copying us as to why a C of A
Okay.
is not.
Part of the problem was it was on the, if you're applying for a new building permit, the historic box was there,
Oh.
but it wasn't on a mechanical. So anytime a mechanical contractor goes to file for a permit,
Right.
there was no
Yeah, sure.
review as to whether or not. So by just having it on the online application in the form, it becomes part of the automatic.
Okay.
We do need to follow up with Eric as to whether that's
We
been
do,
done.
because
Right.
these were suggestions he made when he came and met with us. So
Right.
we need to, when we have some time at a meeting,
The
we need
other-
to go over those
the other-
suggestions and follow up on them and make changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other concern I have with this form is, and I guess it's okay for now, I just can't think how to cure it. We say, on the front page, attached are, and they get to circle what they're attaching, a site plan, scale drawings and elevations, photos, samples of materials. And then on the back, we say, attach a site plan required for buildings or buildings additions, scale drawings required for buildings or building additions, photos, samples of materials, and a detailed description of the proposed work.
So he didn't,
So we don't, I mean, it's unclear whether you have to include photos or not.
What's interesting to me is this is not what the guy who just did the Weicker, this isn't what he downloaded.
Well, it probably hasn't been posted yet.
Oh.
No, I printed this last night off of the
Well, he may have posted it,
website.
he may have posted it, or
Well, he-
printed it earlier.
Well, on Saturday,
Right.
but
Or did Martha send him one that was
An old one?
an old?
I was dealing with Claudia.
Oh.
Oh.
So that was maybe on Friday, or Thursday maybe, and I said that this is what he had to do. But this is not what he printed out. But let's just think about, just for example, real world example, we don't have, what he sent to us does not include the manufacturer's specs.
Right.
So we want to make sure that's on here. That's what we want.
Equipment,
Where does it say that?
I would say something like the effect of, equipment or,
Right here, in description, specific materials to be used.
So should we say specs? Or that is specific materials? I mean, what we want to know is if it's, whatever, a manufacturer.
we want to know the size of the equipment.
We want to know
We've
the
got
size.
that. I mean, we've got measurements, distances from buildings and street, specific materials.
Right, and specs would-
Manufacturer, et cetera.
Right.
But does that, if you're reading that, do you think that applies to these MEP?
Yes, because you want to know the,
Okay.
you want
Are you-
specs,
that's
you want
clear that
height.
that's the MEP and not if you're doing something else?
You don't really need catalog number, manufacturer,
Yeah, yeah.
description, but you want specifications because you want the height. And I was just going to say, for the photographs, I would say 4 sides of the building, because remember, like, I know she's got some photographs here, but if people can, especially like the Jones, we were like, well, can it go in the back? Well, what does the back look like?
Well, we do have some, and then we're updating on
But
them.
just
yes,
for
we should
people
ask them
say
to provide them.
4 photographs of, or 4 sides of the building.
Okay, but here's my question. Do you want, right now, we have parents saying it's required for buildings, a site plan is required for buildings or building additions. We have no parents for photos, samples of material, and a detailed description of the proposed work. Do we always want photos for everything? I mean, it's like somebody's reading this and say, well, do I have to put in a photo or not? The implication is it's optional because there's no similar paragraph saying required here.
Right.
And aren't there other situations with respect to, example, fencing, where we would want a site plan?
Like on Sag Harbor, like CO Day.
It's one of these things where if I'm submitting, I want to send the information that expresses to the committee what I'm trying to get approved.
Right.
And on our side of it, we're trying to outline what some of those minimal things might be. We
I
don't
don't see anything about age.
We don't need photos of an entire property for every submission.
Correct.
What we need is the specific dimensional photographic information of the things that they're trying to submit
Just
and
saying.
prove to make the case, so to speak.
Like this.
Or
Heads
prove.
along the boundary, planting, screening.
But Deb's point was a good one. It would have been helpful when we were talking to the Joneses to have a picture of the back.
It would have.
I know.
They say, it won't work in the back. Well, why not? I mean,
Right.
So this is there.
But do we burden people
I mean, it
with
is clear. This is very clear.
that requirement?
Like this.
That they have to take a photo of their entire house?
I mean,
You know.
if it's relevant to the
It's relevant.
placement of
Right.
something.
Yeah.
But then we had, somebody from down the road come in with not a bit of paper and just talking about it, and we were like, well, you need to see it, and that's why we had to do our site
And that's
visit.
why we have these
So
things.
it would kind of help, to set the parameters of, you don't be as detailed as the architect coming in with all of that, but you see how fast it went when you do have everything.
Right.
And most people are working with the builder, and the builder knows that they have to do this, and they've all got the specifications. It's all part of the whole process. So I think it's okay to ask. I don't know if you're going to get it with each submission, but I mean, if you're changing the form,
Ask for what we think we need minimally, is what I would recommend. And then each submission, we have to decide if it's sufficient or if we need more information.
Right.
I remember one guy that came in and he did a hand sketch while we were sitting here, where he was putting the unit. At the end of the day, maybe that was okay, I don't know, but it's going to vary between
Yeah.
that and a full architectural sense.
right.
Here's a like-for-like form we got the other day.
Right.
this
Okay,
this
yeah.
is, the detailed description is pretty good, I think. Do we need any other language, Deb, about specifications beyond what's there? We say include measurements, height, width, and depth, distances from buildings and streets, specific materials to be used, manufacturer, et cetera.
Where a cut sheet of a unit can be helpful is you actually get to see the object, right? You get to see what this thing might look like.
Right,
So we could say that in parentheses. We
Right.
could say if available.
right,
Cut sheets.
yes,
Cut sheets.
available.
Yeah,
right.
equipment cut sheets of it, right, because that can be informative.
It's very informative.
Do we want that for like the roof kind of thing? Like, well, we haven't, luckily we
don't
haven't
know
had
if we
any
can- I think we have to,
construction,
Yeah.
but
Well, yeah, I mean,
I think we keep working on
I
this.
just don't think we can.
well, a cut sheet, for example, another cut sheet would have been the roof for the church that came in.
Right,
He-
exactly.
He brought in it's not just a cut sheet, but it's
The sample,
and the sample, but the catalog from the manufacturer.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
It's just a huge difference, though, in
All
the
right.
quality of submissions that we get.
I-
I mean, when the church comes forward, or when
You expect
Elspeth
that.
came forward, they come with a very, Pamela, I mean, they came with a professional, but, everyone doesn't do that.
Do that.
Yeah.
So I would put, in all cases, we need a detailed description, and then it spells out.
Right. And the
So let's-
more detail that we have, the quicker, the likelihood that your application will be expedited or,
The important part about the plan is that, just like in the case of the shifting barn we had here, we need a plan of what's submitted, and then if they change that, you've got a record of where they said it was gonna go, and then where they're
right,
changing.
that's on the bottom. But
Yeah,
that-
the plan to me is the most important thing.
Okay. I think I would suggest leaving this discussion, and we may want to come back to it. We can post these updates that we do have, and it can be updated.
Right,
Is
it's
there
gotta
an
continue.
updated date on this at the bottom?
Yeah,
Of
This is
of
one I
this one?
printed last night, but,
Oh.
This is revised August 22,
Where?
and this
The
corner
C of
here, when
A.
I printed it.
revised date 22, yeah.
Okay, so change that to 11/22.
Okay, but this is mine, I need yours.
Did you put in here anything about, or is it somewhere else, like this work needs to be completed within, like, is there,
A year, we
It's-
have it,
that's a
it's
standard.
there.
in there somewhere,
It's there
okay.
somewhere. Always been there before, we didn't take it out, did we?
No, it says,
Good for, here, down here.
good for. and
Good for your
It's
expired.
Oh, okay.
usually a year, but sometimes we want stuff done sooner.
Okay.
Last item on the agenda.
Is whether to approve the payment to the Historical Society for the calendar.
Oh, for the calendar. I'll make the motion, yes, to
Okay,
approve.
great.
second.
Hey,
13,
all I would say is in past years, we've always seen what they're proposing, and it's been valuable to see it because sometimes they've had errors in it. So stuff goes out under
Did we
our
not-
name, it's a
It should be
risk with
reviewed.
errors.
Yeah, it should be reviewed.
So I would,
Was it not
I
on the
would-
email?
no, I don't think we see
Not
the
the
calendar
calendar.
until we go to the opening.
we have other years, but I would suggest we communicate to them that in order to participate in future years, we must see a draft of the proposed page.
Oh, yeah. Do you want to,
Um,
we have to move on that row, right?
Well, they've printed it.
Are we going to vote,
we've
do we have a
been invoicing.
second on this or what are we, what's the
who
motion?
made the to
I made the motion.
And I second.
to approve the
Okay.
payment for
And Russ
participation in the,
Calendar.
I mean, I think it's done for this year, and we have to approve it, but
Right.
Calendar.
And put a request in to review it.
under our name
Yeah.
appears, and somebody says, that's really wrong.
and in future years,
We will have to pre-approve.
Well, I would say, and
The artwork.
communicate that in future years, the commission must
Pre-approve the artwork or something.
pre-approve the proposed, its proposed page. That needs to be communicated to them. We can ask Martha to do
You
that.
would think that they would send you a sample of it, just to...
Well,
they have. Okay, so that's a vote, so we're voting
Yeah.
for that?
Right, just to pay a...
And Russ, did you
Aye.
second it?
I seconded it.
You did, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn?
I'll
Okay.
second. And
All in favor?
Okay,
Russ
we're
and-
adjourned at,
Hang that up.
How do you do this?
and then I have
Hang it up.
and then I have information.